To call to order this July 25th, 2018 regular board meeting of the Pullman School District. We'll begin, as we always do, with our flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. And the next item on the agenda is the approval of the agenda. Superintendent Maxwell, are there any changes to tonight's agenda?
Just one, not a change, but just to be aware, in addition, under superintendent's report, I am going to ask Mr. Thornton to give a brief update on the status of the track and related trees.
Is that under construction update?
That'll be under construction update, yes.
Okay. So it'll be small I, two I's.
Small two I's.
Okay. All right. Anything else?
Nothing else, other Ryan, I've lost control of the...
I will move that we approve the agenda as slightly revised this evening.
Second.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. The agenda is approved. Next, we'll move on to reports, correspondence, and program, beginning with the PHS ASB report, if there is a representative of ASB here tonight. It appears that there is not.
There's not.
Okay. So next we'll move on to board reports, beginning with Director Weed.
Well, I should know what's going on everywhere after spending from 8:30 this morning on our board advance, but I will say that I was happy that we had it, and I learned a lot. I thanked our communications expert, Jean Marie, for learning. I learned a lot. Even though I have a degree in communications and worked in communications for over 50 years, I did learn a lot, so that's saying something to you. But it was good, and I'm thrilled that you're on board with us and helping us out, and hopefully it's nothing but great successes from now on, our communicating skills. Well, we're working on it. And I think that's about it, other than walking in here and seeing the spiffy floors. Everything's getting ready for the school year to start up, so it's kind of nice. That's it.
All right, thank you. Director Roberts?
Nothing too much to report. I attended the PEA budget meeting last night, the budget presentation. Was interested to hear their perspective on that, but otherwise nothing new to report.
Okay, thank you. Director Everman?
Likewise, since Nathan and I serve on the Finance Committee for the board, I attended as well, and it was good to see that perspective and how the budget is looking. And we were fortunate because we visited there last night and we got our own budget update today, so I think I'm thankful to Diane for doing that today. So that's all I had.
All right, thank you. Director Taylor?
No update.
Okay, thank you. I'll mention to you all that I did spend a good part of the weekend at WASDA Nominations Committee interviewing candidates for WASDA officers. I expect there will be people running from the floor this year. It's going to be an interesting election cycle at WASDA. We also have our Director Area 10 Regional Representative Harmon, who you all know. He's actually terming out, so we are going to need to elect a new board member from somewhere in the Director Area 10 region. So that's going to be a...
Are you looking at us? Or-
I will pipe up and say that there is a strategy afoot to try and keep them on board because they're doing they're remodeling or kind of rebuilding the WASDA building, and he is really interested in keeping it on budget or under budget, and trying to calm people down who are wanting to go for the glory. So he would really like to see that to conclusion, and there is a way that it can be done if no one else is nominated at our caucus meeting. then he can step up and go for another
Oh,
year.
I had heard a different spin on it, which was that potentially there would be a different role for him on the board.
Oh, well.
Aside from being the DA10
Okay,
rep.
well, I don't know, it's just that the last, our regional meeting that we went to, because they were trying to recruit somebody else to go on that, in his place. So, and then we thought, well, maybe there's another way to do it. but-
Yeah, it is largely because of his fiscal oversight.
Right.
That WASDA has been able to
So that, yeah,
do this project. and
Absolutely.
he's- So, yeah.
that's why he wants to continue
Yeah.
on. But I was interested in doing, they were trying to talk me into it, so I might,
Yeah,
well, I'll talk to him about it.
okay, that would be great, because that will be a need in our director area, and there's
Yeah.
not that many.
There's a lot of, it's hard to find somebody willing to give up, and that's one day a month.
Well, and our director area is so skewed toward kind of tiny, rural, hard-to-reach places. A lot of those places have a hard time being active in WASDA because if they are so isolated. So, yeah, thank you.
Well, it is difficult. I mean, if you drive over, it's a 2-day thing, no matter what. I have been,
Even flying.
I
is-
fly over at 5 in the morning and then fly back
Okay.
at 11 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
That same night, but I figure it's cheaper than me driving and staying for a night,
Yeah,
and so I figure it's okay, but still, it's a long day for
Yeah,
an
it is a
old
long
body like this.
yeah, yeah.
But fortunately, there's nice lounges at the airport. One can
All
cope.
right, yep, okay. Thank you.
Sorry to interrupt, Allison, I'm sorry.
No. And next, superintendent's report.
Thank you. So a couple of reports tonight. One, continuing on the theme of our success in being awarded grants, received notification this week from the Washington FFA Foundation that Pullman High School has been awarded a CASE Technology and Equipment Grant, and this was submitted by Rob Matthews, our FFA teacher, and we received a check for $20,000.
Oh, my God.
Oh, wow.
And so I've been emailing back and forth with Rob a little bit, and I'm trying to get an idea of what specific equipment we'll be purchasing, and he's going to give me an inventory list, but most of it has to do with science-type equipment for the program.
Now, would that be considered supplemental?
This would be supplemental equipment.
Okay.
So,
Very
so
good.
I'll pass that on down. Also, I received in my mail from John Jackshaw, a Young Life Prayer Coordinator, that on August 25th, they have invited the community at 10 a.m. that Saturday. You're welcome to come pray and meet at the main entrance of the school of your choice at 10 a.m. on Saturday before school starts, August 25th. This is for all schools, and this is not only in Pullman, but in Moscow as well. So just wanted to pass along that information as well. Also, Kamiak Elementary School attended the weekly meeting. I believe I sent you the observation report pictures. But continues to be on schedule to slightly ahead of schedule. I'm always nervous in saying it's ahead of schedule because the minute you do, something will come up. But they're well on their way of installing utilities. We should have stormwater, water, and hopefully electricity soon to the building so we can start doing testing. They're already testing the fire sprinkler system. They're drywalling upstairs, finishing that up. So making just fantastic progress on that. And so simultaneously, they're also working on the extension of Terraview, which should be completed by October 1 to the end of our property, not the whole way. But so I just want to clarify that. So really couldn't be happier with the progress. Walker Construction is just doing a fabulous job. As part of the construction update, I've asked Executive Director of Operations Joe Thornton to give an update on the status of the track replacement repair, and also something that we found out during this process, which has to do with some of our more aged advanced poplars, are they, Joe?
Poplars.
Yeah. and the damage that they are causing to the track, and which has contributed to us needing to do some additional repairs. Joe?
So poplars, not popular, but poplars. So as you all know, the track is being resurfaced. That's quite an endeavor. And it's good that we're catching it now, because if we waited much longer, there probably would have been damage to the underlying asphalt, which makes it even more of an expensive repair. So there's an overview. They finished today the 5th layer of the rubberized surface. They'll wait 2 weeks, and then they'll come back and do the painting. And yes, I am going to become evil as far as people driving on the track. So because it's costing us about $150,000 to repair the track. So that included some asphalt repair. And one of the things we've known has happened over the course of the years is that there are roots that are getting under the track and causing it to become an uneven surface, which becomes a safety issue. So this was a repair that was done 2 years ago, where they cut out a section where the root had caused the track to bubble up, and then resurfaced that small section. You can't see it very well because this is a photograph I took in the evening, but this year, in order to make that a better repair, we had Motley cut out a bigger section and repair. So there were 2 sections of the track they needed to repair. Now, the culprit for this type of damage are these poplars right here, which are Lombardy poplars, which is an introduced species. Typically, these were planted as a fast-growing windbreak, with the understanding that after about 10 years, something else is established, you're going to take these out. Well, those have been there for about 40 years, and poplars are in the same family along with aspen and cottonwoods and willow, and they are water hogs. They will go find water wherever it is. So we do not irrigate this hillside up here, but what do we irrigate?
Field.
We irrigate the football field. So these trees, there's one big one in particular that is going after that water and causing the track there to get chewed up. So this section here does have a set of Doug fir that are pretty well established in front of it. But I am proposing, and typically I would not come to you with vegetation questions and ask for advice or permission to do it. But these are trees, and if you follow Pullman city politics at all, you know that trees can be a very controversial issue. The other thing about trees of this age is poplars rot from the inside out, so it could look like it's a healthy tree and it's not, and that could come down, or part of it can come down at any time. So I am proposing that these 8 poplars that are behind this bank of Doug fir, that we take those out. Here's, again, not a great view because it was taken in the evening, but it shows you the Doug fir that are established in front of it, and then here's a view from the street side, from the access road looking back. So it would be these poplars right here.
So are the firs tall enough now to act as a windbreak?
You've lived on the
There's
police.
no way
You've lived on the police for how many years, Susan? Does anything act as a windbreak?
No, but I mean,
Yes.
it's like,
By the way, the other thing that's going to happen with those Doug fir, the minute we take those poplars out,
they'll grow.
they'll take off, because now all of a sudden they can start getting the water that the poplars have been hogging. Yep. And then I think we need to start thinking about a plan to start getting some secondary windbreaks established where some of the other poplars are. So as they start to age out and maybe start causing some damage, we can be taking those out.
Well, I just think it makes it less painful if we have,
Something there.
yeah, see, we've planned ahead.
Yeah. well,
This is like foresight.
That's right.
Yeah. Way to go, Joe.
Questions or concerns? And again, Bob and I felt typically we're not going to come to you for permission to take out a particular tree, but
Trees sometimes have a sentimental value to folks, but also we do have the Doug firs, which have a different root system. We feel those will come up, and Joe and I have also talked about having arborists come in and take a look at the rest of the trees, maybe plant some Doug firs in front of those, so as they age, because trees have a lifespan, and they're getting to where they may become a safety hazard. We want to be proactive And just so people know, if we start cutting trees, we're not getting rid of all the trees. We have a plan to replace those trees.
And I will be very unhappy if we do this work on the track and then there's some more root damage.
Oh, we don't want an unhappy Joe.
We do not want an unhappy Joe. No. Questions? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Joe.
Thank you, Joe.
Thank you. And last but not least on the superintendent's report, I've invited our communication consultant, Jay Marie, to speak a little bit about her work today with the board and maybe some reflections.
Thank you. And given that I am battling that head cold, I brought some notes up here. Normally I might just kind of speak off the top of my head, but I wanted to thank you all for bringing me in and for having the opportunity to continue to work with you. So for the benefit of those who might not know, I was here last year to work with you all just a little bit around organizational communications, particularly when you're dealing with topics that may have confidentiality aspects attached to it. And so coming back this year, we deepened our training a little bit into communication styles and the Johari window, which is a model for how do we come to understand what we know about ourselves and others, and the stories that we tell ourselves about others and that others might be telling themselves about us. And then deepened in our attention on with communications, we often think about the side of what we say, and this was an opportunity to also reflect upon what are our listening skills like, and what are the listening skills that are specific to positions of leadership and governance. And so it was really an honor to get to spend a couple hours working with you all. And I want to commend you for inviting your principal team to join you for that portion of your retreat today. I think it really enriched the conversation for you to be able to be side by side with your administrative leaders and talking together about these issues around how do we engage the community fully? How do we try new and different techniques in order to engage and listen well to our community? And so I think it ended up being nice in both directions for you all to have that richness in your conversation. I think it became very evident to me the value that you all place and the importance, the sincerity that you bring to this renewed focus on communications and community engagement. And I really want to thank you each for, there's a certain vulnerability that is required when you go to learn new skills and when you are seeking to learn skills specifically to ask more of your community and what they think, and invite them into the conversation more. And that requires vulnerability and courage in pretty equal parts. And I see that in you in the conversations that you all had and the reflections that you shared today. And I just want to commend you for that. Also, I guess I would just repeat a couple of the reflections that I shared towards the end of our training, and that is to encourage you to be mindful that any programs or activities that you start are things that you really can continue and follow through on, both it's not enough to have your strong intentions around being good listeners and engaging with the community, but those good intentions need to be able to have sustainability and kind of the strength of the organization behind them. And so I really appreciate the ways that you talked about what your priorities are, and then talked about what are the resources necessary to make those priorities possible, and see that as an ongoing conversation. Because really, community engagement, it's like any relationship in that it's never really done, right? It is going to be an ongoing process. You're going to try a few new things this fall. I think it's wonderful the way you're bringing in a neutral someone from the ombuds office to come help you really understand the perspective of your colleagues. And then to use that, to lean on that neutrality that office can bring to you as you think about your listening tour this year. I think that was a really wise idea, the way you're approaching that. And the idea of this communications advisory committee or group that I know you all will be talking about later in your board meeting, but the work that you all did today to talk about how to make good use of that time that you have with your community when they come together to help you think about these things, And so I really commend and encourage you to continue to bring that intentionality to the agenda planning, and then to share that agenda planning out broadly the way you talked about doing. I think those are really strong steps in the right direction. And just be mindful as you consider other possible steps that they are things that your community and your district has the resources to be able to carry out long term. I think another aspect that was just delightful to me was the way it started with this aspect of coaching and training around communication styles, process, and listening, and it very quickly and consistently became dialogue. And to me, that shows that you all were taking the content very seriously, were applying it personally, both for yourselves individually as leaders and for the larger organization, and thinking really critically about what are the things that you can do differently moving forward to build even better communications and community engagement cycles within your community. So I'm looking down at my notes just to see if I've missed any other pieces. Oh, and I think, and this might relate a little bit to the dialogue I saw with you all bringing your principles into play, but I also want to just note how fortunate you are to have Shannon on board, to have a competent, established communications person already on your team. For a district this size, that is really helpful. And, you know, districts in this size range, it's not always the case that you would have a communications person on board, but you're at the right place, and your community clearly has the need and the desire for the work that Shannon brings to the office. So I'm really grateful, as someone who cares about public education across our state, I'm grateful that you already have that resource in-house, and then you're looking at how to wisely support her and the larger team in this work. So I see you all making some really important, really good steps in the right direction. And most importantly is the sincerity of your intention. And that came through very clearly to me, that you've got a few steps underway already, and you've got ideas about what next steps are, and that you're going to continue to have that conversation and then use this committee or advisory group to help you think about how to take these first steps and build the next steps after that, and to do that collaboratively, I think is really beautiful. And in terms of processes, should I take questions, or is it really just a report and step away?
If you have any questions, sir.
Any questions or comments, anything that I didn't bring up that you wished I had?
I think we asked you questions for like 3 hours, right? So we got all mine answered, I think.
Lovely.
No, it's just a big, huge thank you.
Yes, thank you very much.
Absolutely. I mean, it was meaningful and helpful, and it's, one of the better retreats, advances, or whatever they're called that I've been to, because it was good. I felt like it was very productive. So, well done. Thank you.
Thank
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
And I know we'll be in touch.
Yeah.
Thanks.
That concludes my superintendent report.
Okay, thank you. The next portion of the agenda is the visitors section. This part of the agenda is for anyone wishing to speak before the board, either as an individual or as a member of a group. Visitors addressing the board will go to the microphone and state their name and address prior to presenting their information. The board will listen and may offer clarification, but will not discuss the topic at this time. The board may consider moving the topic presented to a future meeting date as a discussion item. Please keep your comments civil and respectful, and limit your remarks to 3 minutes. We do not have any visitors signed in, but nevertheless, would anyone care to address the board? Okay. So next, we'll move on to the consent agenda. To expedite business at a board meeting, the board approves the use of a consent agenda, which includes items considered to be routine in nature. Any item which appears on the consent agenda may be removed from the consent agenda by a member of the board and voted on separately. The remaining items will be voted on by a single motion. Tonight's consent agenda consists of warrants, ASB fundraisers, records destruction, transfer requests, overnight field trip request, minutes, budget status report, and personnel report. And I would now entertain a motion regarding the consent agenda.
I move approval of the consent agenda as presented.
I will second.
It's It's been moved and seconded that we approve the consent agenda as presented. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, the consent agenda is approved. Next, we move on to action items. The first action item tonight is 2018 and 2019 clubs and fundraisers presented by Executive Director of Operations Joe Thornton.
So tonight I get to talk to you about trees, buses, cows, and clubs and fundraisers. So cows, dairy bid.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah,
I got
got
it.
it.
It's,
So every year we need to present to you the proposed clubs and fundraisers for the year. This can change. This is just a roadmap. It doesn't mean that a group of kids can't say, we want to do this. That does need to come back to the board for approval. So this is the proposed, from all the buildings, proposed 18-19 list of clubs and fundraisers. This ebbs and flows every year depending upon student interest. I think
I don't think there is.
Smash Brothers is going away.
Oh, no.
Oh,
Well, is it on the list?
I was going to pull it up, Joe,
Yeah.
sorry.
Is that where they drop watermelons off?
No, it's a video game.
It's a video.
I still play Pong, so it's beyond.
It's about your speed, yeah, perfect. I think since there's no real dramatic changes other than Smash Brothers, I will move that we approve the 2018-2019 clubs and fundraisers.
Second?
it's been moved and seconded that we approve the 2018-2019 clubs and fundraisers. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, the clubs and fundraisers are approved. Next, we have authorization to purchase from or through General Services Administration, presented by Fiscal Manager Diane Hodge.
So we are asking the board to approve a resolution to purchase through the General Services Administration. They've already vetted the bidding process, so this just bypasses the bidding process, anything above 40, 75,000, so 40 or 75,000. And this is, Garen would really like this, just so he can start getting computers here, because we have to make him go out and get bids, and it's kind of hard because you never know what kind of computer you're going to get, so to get a comparable quote is difficult. So if he can go through this process with telecommunications and technology, it's really going to help with the bid process.
No, I think it's a great idea, and it's a win-win for
Yeah,
us.
yeah.
The small district we're in and stuff to
Right.
join that, so. I will move that we approve Resolution 17-1808, which is authorization to purchase to or from General Services Administration TSA contracts.
Second.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded. I'm not going to repeat the full motion. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. That authorization has been approved. Next, we have surplus
Now it's
buses.
cow time, right?
So 2 buses that we want to declare surplus, they are no longer operational and beyond the cost, beyond any value to repair.
I move that we approve it.
Second?
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that we approve this resolution to declare buses number 13 and 12 as surplus.
I think it's bus 3.
Three and 12.
Oh,
yeah.
sorry. 3 and 12.
We have to get rid of 13.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so the it is 09 here, okay, so.
Yeah, the
Okay.
executive summary is,
Okay,
that's what happens when Shannon goes to Hawaii.
yeah, okay, just wanted to make sure, so it is correct on the resolution?
It is correct in the resolution, but the executive summary is.
Executive
Okay.
summary has the wrong.
Yeah.
Okay.
I went to the book to pull up the next executive summary number, not knowing that Diane had already,
Got you,
yeah.
okay, thank you. Oh, and you can stay right there for prime vendor contract?
Prime vendor contract, which is, lets us piggyback on top of the contract that District 81 has negotiated and let us buy some food staples through them. So we're looking to extend that for another year.
I move to approve the prime vendor contract.
Second?
Right, it's been moved and seconded that that the board exercise the option to renew the yearly prime vendor contract with Food Services of America for the 2018-19 school year. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
All right. And the dairy bid.
And this is a request from Sheba to extend the contract with Dairy Gold one more year, which we are allowed to do. Working with that vendor has been wonderful, so we'd like to continue that relationship with them.
There wasn't a change in price, was there? A little
No.
bit? Wow.
Maybe a little bit, but
Yeah, okay. Well, I know that in the past, we've had some dairies that we haven't been happy with, so if we found one we're happy with,
Yeah.
I will move that the board award the dairy agreement for the fiscal year 2018 to 2019 to Medigold Dairy.
Second?
It's been moved and seconded that we award the dairy agreement to Meadow Gold Dairy. Any further discussion? Okay, and so this would be the last
I
year?
believe- yes,
And
I
then we have to
believe-
open it up to...
Correct.
Open it up.
Okay.
Correct.
All right.
Can only do an extension for 1 year.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
and I think I'm still up.
Yep.
Meal prices.
So I have to go out and then come back in.
So that's right. So this is an adjustment to meal prices. Sheba is requesting, I believe it is to raise lunch prices at the middle school 10 cents, and that is to keep us within that target range of what we get from USDA for free and reduced lunch reimbursement.
Is there a motion?
I move to approve the 2018-19 school meal prices.
I will second.
It's been moved and seconded that we adopt the 2018-19 meal price schedule shown here. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Is anyone opposed? Okay,
Thank you for all counts.
thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Next up, discussion.
Okay,
With secondary student.
yeah, I have
Yeah,
a
that-
G secondary.
That's left over from
Sorry,
previous.
that's been removed. We don't have the cleaned up versions ready.
Okay.
Yeah,
I think there's one under information or something, maybe not, okay.
Do we need to amend the agenda then? Or?
We can do it
That's
addend-
underneath an
addendum.
agenda item, but I think the agenda item is what we vote on, not what's
Maybe you can move the table it.
underneath it.
No, move to reapprove the agenda with that stricken off.
Yeah, I didn't see it in there.
This is where we get into the depths of Robert's rules.
No, I think
Actually, you would have to, because this was already an item that you voted on, so this is just an error. Typo. So we'll just make a note, Shannon, in the minutes, that this was a typo and should not have been included, because it was voted on
Was it?
for the
It
previous.
was not approved yet.
It was not.
No,
approved
it's
yet?
not.
Okay, then let's make a note then that, to table G to another agenda.
Does that require a motion?
That requires a motion.
Okay.
I would move that we strike secondary student and parent handbooks from the agenda.
or
Or
amended to table it.
To table it to a further meeting.
To table it to a further meeting.
Okay.
I second that.
All right, it's been moved and seconded that we table discussion or action item G, secondary student and parent handbooks. Any discussion on that motion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, that motion is approved. So now we move on to discussion items, beginning with Communication Advisory Committee, presented by Nathan Roberts.
You'll have to forgive me, I'm kind of struggling with a cold myself. So I'm here to present a motion for discussion to create a communication advisory group or committee. We'll call it committee from here on out. The purpose of this committee, which we began discussing in the last board meeting and then discussed at length in the work session that we had last time, would really be to deal with some of the communication issues that we found in the district. Specifically, we would like to begin the committee's work looking at how we would implement and communicate the results of an ombuds in the district, and so hiring a conflict resolver, I think, are basically what they are. The second item would be to go through the process of conducting a climate survey, and so to really discuss the nuts and bolts of that. And third would be to discuss methods of better communicating and disseminating information to the public, staff, et cetera, and just to get better at communication in general. I think currently what I'm asking the board to approve is 4 meetings based upon a committee composed of a PEA delegate, which we've invited the PEA to send a delegate to the committee, 1 teacher volunteer, 2 community volunteers, and a student volunteer. And so I believe we're still working out the composition of that group. We would probably discuss as a committee if we thought more meetings were required, or the board would discuss approving more meetings, but all I'm asking the board to approve currently is 4 meetings to discuss these 3 issues. So, are there any questions?
A clarification, we have determined some of the volunteers already, isn't that?
I don't have the list because it was emailed to me very briefly before we started our work session, and so our retreat. Shannon, would you mind reading the list if you have it handy?
You want me to go there?
Yeah, please.
Okay, the PEA was asked to select 1 representative to serve on the committee, and they've selected Johanna Brown from the high school. And then we had 4 teachers apply to be on the committee, and by lottery, the teacher selected was Lana Carrier, who's going to be, I believe, kindergarten at Franklin. And then we had, I think, 29 community members apply to be on the committee, and the 2 chosen by lottery were Beth Ficklin and Steve Yen, and all 3 of the people selected by lottery have confirmed that they'll be willing to serve on the committee.
Great.
And then the student, we're still working on.
We need to work on recruiting a student. We didn't have any student applicants, but that's a voice we want represented on that committee, so we will work at getting a few options.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Sorry.
A little hard to track them down in the cemetery.
It is.
Are there any other questions?
Well, I think in the interest of getting this going as soon as we can, I would like to move that we make this an action item this evening. So I will move that we move the Communications Advisory Committee to an action item.
Second. All right, it's been moved and seconded that we move the approval of a Communication Advisory Committee to the board from a discussion item to an action item this evening. Is there any further discussion of that motion? I agree with, just as you say, it's time sensitive. It makes sense if we want to get going on this to get the work going right away. So, all right, all those in favor of that motion?
Aye.
Okay, that's unanimous. And so now a motion with regard to the committee itself.
I would move that we approve the committee.
Okay.
I will second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded that we approve the board's Communication Advisory Committee as presented. Any further discussion of that?
Nathan, do you perceive that this will be a standing committee of the board, or are we just going to evaluate it as time goes by?
I mean, I think that's up to us to decide, but I would personally like to see how it works and, to get the feedback, to see if the committee members thought it, to kind of get their feedback as to whether it was worthwhile, and then for us to consider whether we wanted to make it a standing committee or a committee that meets on an as-needed basis. I can definitely see more issues than the 3 that we have that we could discuss, but just in the interest of keeping an agenda that we could deliver recommendations quickly, I thought we should, and we had discussed with Allison and myself to keep the recommendations small. But yes, I would say once we get the results and the recommendation, that would be up for the board to decide whether we wanted to continue.
So there is no time limit associated with this motion?
The motion on the table currently only stipulates 4 meetings,
Okay.
But does not forbid any further meetings. So.
Okay, good. I just wanted to clarify that.
Absolutely.
Good. That's all.
Any further discussion? Okay, hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, also passes.
Nice. Thank you very much.
And for those of you watching who are wondering, why is this meeting so fast? It's because we have spent all day, we've been together since 8:30 a.m. So
It meant just we love each other.
We've
Enough is
kind
enough.
of run out of things to discuss.
Being very efficient.
Yes. So our second discussion item this evening is the 2018-19 budget, four-year budget summary and enrollment projections.
Again, I want to thank you for saving the best for last.
As always.
That's our diamond.
So this is the 2018 budget, and this year we're required to do a four-year projected budget and a four-year projected enrollment that needs to be approved by the board. So I will go through it in a little bit more detail. This is just summary, same copies are available in the fiscal office. This has been reported in the paper and on our website. So these are our recommended budgets. We have our general fund, ASB fund, debt service fund, capital projects fund, and our transportation vehicle fund. This is the recommended budgets you guys will actually be approving. Our total revenues in our general fund, and that's what I'm going to focus on tonight, is mostly our general fund, is going to be about $35 million. We have our expenditures, so it's a balanced budget at $35 million. We anticipate our beginning fund balance at $7.2 million, and we anticipate ending at $6.8 million. We have a $400,000 transfer in there to Transportation Vehicle Fund, and that is because we have, Joe applied for and received a grant that we will get $35,000 per bus that we surplus. That's off the depreciation schedule. So this is a great opportunity. Again, I say, that we are for the students, we're funded for the students, we need to spend it on the students, and we need some buses. So that's what that $400,000 transfer is for. ASB fund, total revenue is $596, expenditure is about $585, and that's about where they always fall every year. So we'll end with about $264,000. Debt service, it just services our debt. That's what we go out for tax collection, to service our debt on our bonds for Lincoln Middle School and Kamiak and the high school. Capital projects fund, $10 million, because we're almost at the end phase of finishing Kamiak about mid-year next year. Total expenditure, $17 million, and for a remaining fund balance of $583. We've already received the majority of that, so that's sitting in our fund balance, so that our revenue isn't going to be near as much as it has in the past. And again, our transportation vehicle fund, the only revenue we really get in there is investment earnings and our depreciation. So that's what builds our transportation vehicle fund, which is why we're transferring $400,000 in there, so we can take advantage of that grant that we're receiving to surplus those 4 buses and get 4 brand new buses. Once we surplus those buses, they go on our depreciation schedule, and so then we start receiving money for those for depreciation. So, and you guys have a 7% ending fund balance as required by our policy. We have about $3 million in reserves for the anticipated expenses opening the new Kamiak Elementary. Our enrollment and staffing, we went through this in February. Our enrollment will be 2,845 students. Our actual ending in 2017-18 was 2,817 students. We budgeted 2,770, so we were 47 students above our budget last year. This year, for the first time in a long time, we're actually budgeting more than what we anticipate, or what we ended with in the previous fiscal year. We are at 20.8 teachers, or not teachers, but FTE, 14.534 instructional, and 6.272 classified, for a total of 20.86. And that's just to try and reduce class size, get prepared for Kamiak. We've been hearing from teachers, they want smaller class sizes, so we're listening, and we're making that happen next year, even though Kamiak's not open. So the general fund budget of $35.3 million provides for the school district's annual operations, with approximately 2,845 students served by 193.47 instructional and administrative FTE, and 103.2 classified FTE employees. It's an increase of about $4.5 million over the 2017-18 budget, and we will see a reduction of $1.1 million in local taxes, and I'll go over that in a second. So our general fund revenue, this just basically gives an increase and decrease on the very far right-hand side of where the money's coming in, where we're getting the most of it. Again, the most of it is going to be coming from the general purpose state, and that's due to this increase in salaries that we're receiving, or the funding that we're receiving from the state for salaries and benefits. Enrollment was projected at 75 student FTE higher than the 2017-18 fiscal year. Again, that's why there's going to be an increase, because we are budgeting for additional students, and that's what we're funded off of. The base salary for certificated staff increased 11.6%. Their base salary was $36,521. We have to offer a minimum of $40,760, but again, we're in negotiations because now all salaries are negotiable for certified staff. The base salary for administrative and classified staff is increasing 3.1%. Administrators are limited to 3.1%, so that's not negotiable. Benefit insurance allocation increased $23.97 per FTE. And the certified administrative and classified employees are now funded at a flat rate instead of a staff mix factor. And our allocation for MSOCs, which are material, supplies, and operating costs, increased $23.64 per FTE. So 69% of our funding will come from the state apportionment. Then we have our local taxes at 12%, state special purposes 13%, federal purposes 4%, and then it's less than 1% on other school districts and other revenues, which is just local revenues. Again, here's the breakdown by program. So our total instruction, which is basically our teachers, all of our basic education, is going to be, we budgeted almost $3 million. Special education, almost $6 million. Voc CTE is $1.5 million. And then our Title I's, Title I LAP, ELL, or ELD now, is almost $1.4 million. And then just other instructional programs, which is your high cap, $85 million, or $85,000. And then your total support services is $8.4 million. And that's district-wide support, custodians, food service, transportation, maintenance, central office. So there's just a breakdown of direct classroom support, indirect classroom support, and district-level support. And again, this is where our money's spent. Most of it, 58%, is spent on instruction in the classroom.
Is that salaries mainly, or is it?
Mm-hmm. Yep. And we're required by OSPI to give it MSOC disclosure, which is our materials, supplies, and operating costs, that what we are receiving in MSOC money is actually being spent in MSOC money. So we have to bring this to the board and do a disclosure that, yes, we are spending our MSOC money in MSOCs. This is our property tax levy collection. So this is where we're getting a little bit tricky in 18-19. So in 2018, we certified $5.3 million. And that's the amount that was voter approved to collect in 2018. Well, so we get to collect that full amount in 2018, but everything changes in 2019. We are going to be limited to $1.50 per $1,000 of assessed value. So in the spring, we can only collect, for 2019, we can only collect $3.2 million in levy money. And so in the spring, we'll collect about 1.7. So out of the 5.3 million, we're only able to collect 4 million. And then in the bottom, I kind of showed you a breakdown of what the voter approved levy was, 5.3, 5.3. Then we lumped in tech levy funds and increased it to 5.5, 5.5 come 2020. So this is our capital projects fund, and it just gives our expenditures and our revenues. Again, we're working on CAMIAC, so those are going to be the majority of our expenditures. We anticipate ending with a $583,000 fund balance because CAMIAC should be done by then. Our debt service fund, again, there's a breakdown. The revenue comes from our tax collection, and it pays off our bonds. And this is, I just gave you this information just to show you, we have $74 million in bonds to pay off. Those are the bonds. And the end of 2019, our Lincoln Middle School bond will be paid off. And then we have our high school and Cameo. Our ASB fund, this is student-generated money, goes in, goes out. It's about the same every year. Fundraisers, donations, etc., is where the majority of the money comes from. And our transportation vehicle fund. And again, the district anticipates purchasing 4 new buses in 2018-19, and I want to say much-needed buses. So that's going to be a real treat to transportation. Now we're into the 4-year enrollment and budget projection. So this is going to be the fun one. So our capital projects fund, we do a 4-year projection. Again, we're not going to have a whole lot of money in there. CAMIAC's going to be paid off. So it's basically going to be any expenditures, improvements that we have on our current buildings. So we didn't anticipate too much in there. You really can't anticipate what you're going to do. I didn't include Lincoln Middle School in there if we go out for a bond for Lincoln because we don't know what we're going to do. Debt service fund, again, just servicing our debt. ASB, again, we increase it, I think, by 1% each year just for revenues and expenditures. Transportation vehicle fund. Joe is going out for another grant in 2019-20 to try and get 4 more buses so we can get reimbursed $35,000 a bus. We're basically getting 1 bus free if we buy 4 is what it comes down to. So again, I reiterate, because this is for the students, we want to spend the money on the students, and this is a much needed purchase. We have not invested in buses in a long time. Our 4-year enrollment projection that we need to bring to the board for approval. Again, this was brought to you in February. We have gradual increases every year, and they're pretty steady. Flow Analytics did a study that showed our enrollment is pretty much starting to become consistent. We had a couple years where we had 100. Now it's going back down to 30, 40. So we feel our enrollment is pretty on target. Okay, so this is our 4-year projection. We have to realize that, and I'm actually going to come over here, I hope it doesn't get in anyone's way. And if I am, just let me know. So 2018-19, we have a balanced budget. 2019-20, this is where we're adding Cameo. So you're going to see we have an extra $3.3 million in expenditures. What we're trying to get our community to realize is we're opening a new school with 2,845 students, but we're not getting funded for a new school. So we have to take our current funding and divide it out into that new school. That new school is going to cost us about $3 million, and that's probably being conservative because it cost us $3.5 million to run Jefferson this year. So we are going to be spending an additional $3 million. That doesn't mean we can't afford it, especially when we opened it. And, we went into this without restrictions on our money. So I want to make that clear. If we can afford the school, we have to make adjustments in the future, though, based upon the new legislative funding. We did not have the new legislative funding in place when we started that school. So we're going to be dipping into our reserves, which is exactly why we have built these reserves, in order to anticipate the opening of Cameo. So we're going to have, our expenditures are going to be $3.3 million more than our revenue. We're going to end in 2019-20 with a $3.5 million ending fund balance. In 2021, we are going to spend $2.9 million more in expenditures than revenue. It's going to put our ending fund balance down to $534,000. In 21-22, we are going to be $3.1 million more in expenditures, which is going to leave us $2.6 million in the hole if we don't make some changes. These are very conservative numbers, so it will probably look worse if I used consistent numbers. My expenditures, I only increased 0.5% per year in order to make it look better. We're spending $3.5 million on Jefferson. We're anticipating $3 million in costs in Camiac. So could it be off? Absolutely. So we just have to keep watching our budget. I don't do this to scare people. I do it because it's reality. And I can justify every penny of this $2.6 million we're going to be in the hole.
Does that include, that doesn't include the reserves that by policy we have, to keep
look here.
1 month of payroll?
Look here. So here's our unassigned minimum fund balance right here. So we're $2.2 million in the hole. And then I'm still keeping our reserves in each one of these. This means we have $775,000. Hold on. No, that's beginning. Anyway, so we're $5.5 million in the hole if we keep our 2.8 in reserves. If that makes sense. Yeah. So I kept our fund balance policy in each one of these. And then this is the amount we're going to be in the hole. So if we maintained our fund balance in 2020-21, we'd be 2.2 million in the hole. But the thing is, every school district's here. It's not just Pullman, So we just have to make some really wise spending decisions and move forward. I know a lot of school districts are anticipating that the legislature has to make changes, but we can't count on that because to them, they have fully funded education. So to me, they wash their hands of it and they're done. Does it mean they can't change it? No, it doesn't, but we can't count on it either. Does anyone have any questions on that?
I think it's good to recognize that we have to be ultra-conservative during this time with the new school coming on board.
Yep.
And with the uncertainty of the money coming from the state.
Correct.
Okay, so I just want to make that clear.
Well, and when you did the original projections for Camiac without knowing that the levy was going to be taken away, it was what were the projections like? I mean, just briefly.
Yeah, so we were anticipating 2.5, and then we started adjusting towards the class size in the collective bargaining agreement, and it's more like 3 million. So, so we're basing it on 3 million. Yeah.
So essentially the collapse is absolutely because the levy just got
And I'll get to that in a second to show you something.
Preempted.
Yeah, so without the reductions, the fund balance will be negative in 4 years, as a given. Staffing increases were anticipated.
Diane, one more question before we get on to this summary slide. In terms of the levy, why did the state take that levy option away from us?
I can't tell you why they did it. I can tell you why I think they did it. Because there's a lot of school districts, and Bob, I think you can help me out here too. I think a lot of school districts were offering additional pay and taking levies out to pay for that additional pay for staff. And so in order to limit what they could do with their money, I think they put a lot of restrictions on levy. So what they're doing is they're limiting your levy amount, and that levy money, all they're doing is swapping dollars, but putting restrictions on the dollars that they're swapping. We can only spend levy money and local effort assistance money, and I'll get to that in a second, on enrichment activities only, which is for the kids, class size reduction, professional development. We used to use it for utilities. We can use it for staffing over the prototypical funding. So if, say we had 10 custodians, we're only, the prototypical funding only funds 6, then we can charge 4 of those custodians to enrichment. But there's restrictions. We can't use it on utilities. We can't use it on anything that we want to, like we had free reign on what we could use it for. But now we can't.
Okay.
Yeah, and we actually have to code it differently now, so they know exactly where that levy money's going.
Thank you.
Yep. Staffing increases were anticipated for 1920 due to the opening of Camiac. No additional staff were added beyond the 1920 fiscal year. Salaries will only increase by the anticipated 1.9% IPD, which is what the state is figuring the cost of living will be for the next 3 years. So we base those increases into the expenditures. But this does not include potential increases due to movement based on clock hours or additional degrees. Current union bargaining agreements with teachers, custodians, and paraprofessionals have not been completed at this time, which could affect both salary and benefit projections.
Now, have you built any assumptions based on those bargaining into the budget?
Yeah. And then expenditures were increased conservatively, like I said before, 0.5% per year, and it's averaging about 1 to 2. So this is where our levy comes in. So right here, we're given 5.3 million, 2018, 5.3, 2019, 5.5, 5.3. So the maximum we can get in 2018-19 is $4 million. The local effort assistance is making up for what we don't fully get in our levy, so that's what the state's going to give us since we don't get our full levy. But it's only $900,000, which means we're still $305,000 short. Again, all of that money is restricted money. In 2019-20, we'll get $3.2 million. We'll get $1.1 million from the state for LEA. We're still short $947,000. In 2021 gets even worse. We get 3.3, we'll get 1.1 for LEA, we're going to be short 1 million. 2021, 5.3, we'll get 3.3, almost 3.4 from levy, 1.2 from the state, we're still short 700. So over those 4 years, we're losing almost $3 million, which is 1 year of cameo.
Yeah.
And so we're losing $3 million in levy.
Is it the state that is every district, restricted to this $1.50 per thousand?
It depends. There's a $2,500 or $2,500 per student based on something. We didn't qualify, so I'm.
Regionalization?
Either $2,500 per student, or you're capped at the $1.50, depending on basically the size of your school district.
Yeah. So that ball wasn't in our court.
And we still get nothing from, we don't get any impact fees or anything from WSU?
Oh, no.
No.
No. We also do not get regionalization pay, which some other districts receive. Some other districts also received an experience percentage increase if they had a number of teachers at the high end of the salary schedule currently. Pullman received no regionalization, no experience fees.
Yeah.
We're limited at $1.50. And remember, we were collecting $2.77 approximately.
Yeah.
Now, our community voted for the 5.3.
Yeah.
As you can see, we're not going to be recovering that money. And granted, with the property tax, they were supposed to give us back, right, to make the difference. Well, you can see each year, we're not getting 100% of what we're sending away now, which was my fear, that we wouldn't get a dollar for dollar back. And I think it's pretty clear that we're not getting a dollar for dollar.
So they're still collecting?
So they're still collecting this levy?
I didn't know that part. Yeah, that's interesting.
The 5?
No.
Oh,
okay.
So what happens, so when I go out to certify, I can only certify, so this is fiscal year and calendar year. We go by calendar year. So in 2019, I can only certify for 3.2 million.
That's right.
So that's all they can collect then?
Right.
You're right.
So at least the taxpayers are getting something out of this, rather than no money for the students.
Because the state's increasing the property tax.
Oh, Lord love a duck.
Yeah. To make up for that funding, the additional funding.
So our community will see their school levy amount drop with their property tax go up.
Yeah.
Perfect.
It's a win-win, Susan.
Yeah.
Okay, so any questions on this?
I do have questions, but not for you. It's fine.
Okay.
But I think this is a very important point for the community to understand.
Yeah. And like I said, we're not the only district,
No,
so this doesn't reflect on Pullman School District. It just means we need to be wise from this point forward.
right.
Well,
So
it
are
was
there-
fun while it lasted.
Are there steps that we could take now to start trying to,
Right, your legislators? Yep.
so as far as cost-cutting initiatives in the district though? I mean,
We
are there
can,
ways-
and I'll get into that in just a second. And this is kind of what you're talking about, Nathan. So we need to educate our district employees and community on critical issues and understanding the definition of reserves is the key to budget credibility, which is what you guys have been doing this whole time. Because we anticipated this. We anticipated the additional cost for CAMIAC. This is what we planned for. We have to look at the district's long-range financial plan. It shows the impact of today's decisions on the finances of future years. Make sure we spend today's dollars on today's children, but not at the expense of tomorrow's children. We have to be really wise about our decisions in spending. If legislative issues are not resolved, there is enough money to do what we need to do, but not everything we want to do. Our wants and needs must be prioritized. And what do we need to remember as we move forward? We exist to educate. It is about the students. Keep calm and ask questions. So do you have any questions? I mean, it's a hard reality, but, the one thing I worry about is our bond rating if we were to go out for Lincoln Middle School. A lot of business managers, I'll be honest, question whether to even show a negative fund balance, but this is the reality of it. If we stay status quo, this is where we're going to be. Because if we have a negative fund balance, and this could come bite us back in the butt, I don't know, then our bond rating goes down.
Yeah.
So, of course, our rates are going to be quite a bit higher when we go out for a Lincoln bond. We want to make sure that we are fiscally responsible so that when we go out for a levy again, we have the support of the community. And we just need to show them we know what we're doing.
This is so hard after looking today at all the data and how we were thinking how important we need to close the achievement gap for our low income and our special ed students, which then requires more money.
Resources,
And,
yeah.
and
Resources.
Yeah.
to see this is, it's like, oh, we can do this, and now we can't do that. So
Yeah.
it's tough.
Well, it's going to be prioritizing, though, and it is about the students. And, we are here for the students, and we need to spend it on the students. So, we have some hard decisions to make. We're in the middle of negotiations, so there's a lot going on right now.
Okay. Thank you. And we did discuss this a little bit today, and I'll point out that she can show you where every single penny is going. She's got backup for everything. It's amazing. I don't know how you do it.
Well, and I'm glad you brought that up because, the funding we get from the state for salaries is, so we get, I've got my documentation right here. I'm just going to go over it. So we are going to get, the state is going to fund us for 153.2 basic ed teachers. We will get $65,216 for each one of those FTE, which means our total funding is going to be $10,257,825. That's an increase from last year of $1,871,000. But, I think what the goal is to get to that average to pay those teachers, but what we're not remembering is that there's additional funding that we give all of our employees, the majority of our employees, for extra hours. We have to pay for sub-costs hold on, excuse me. We get $82,000 from the state, so I'm going to give you an example here. We get $82,000 from the state for subs. That's nothing. We spent $267,000 in certificated subs this year. We have lid days that we give, our teachers. That's not funded. We can fund that out of enrichment, though, so that's good, and that's about $200,000. So there's additional money that we give out that we can't charge to enrichment anymore. This money, I call it enrichment, it used to be levy. So we can't use levy money anymore for some of this extra money that we're giving out, so, which eats into our state money. And so we really have to figure out what we're doing and, and proceed cautiously. Does that make sense?
Kind of. It's just, I don't want to hear about it.
Yeah. I mean, it's just what it is. So,
You cannot say that this was the best for last if you're going to give news like this.
I'm presenting.
So I have a question, and it might not necessarily be for Diane, but if writing the legislators is what we need to do to try to get this better, is that something that we can organize, or is that not really allowed?
As
Does anybody
individuals,
know?
you can do
But
it,
not as a school board?
but not as a group,
Okay.
Well, we could as a board if we did it
as an action item.
as a, through the whole,
Like if you wrote a letter together,
yeah.
you could. Just do not write on the school
District paper? Yeah.
paper or computer. You have to make sure
Postage
that-
meter? No.
But it's something that we can say to people that are
Yeah.
seeing the numbers that
Oh,
we're
absolutely.
seeing and are
Yeah.
equally as concerned, like,
Always
that's something that we
encourage
can
it.
share.
Right.
Is the State Board of Directors survey, like looking for legislative priorities, still open?
Oh, the State Board of Education?
State Board of Education?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, but that's,
But it's not the same. I mean, it's, they just complicate stuff.
You have a very high opinion of the State Board.
No, I don't.
I know, I was being sarcastic.
I know you were.
The professional organizations will start coming out with their priorities. I just saw a draft of the Washington Association of School Administrators just came out with their 3 top legislative priorities. So most of your organizations will start forming up those priorities now, and we'll start going out this fall to educate the state legislative representatives.
I almost think it could be more effective rather than doing it as a board and having some well-thought-out things. If individual members wrote and said, you say you're fully funding education, let me give you an example
Yep.
from
Well, I
here
mean-
in our district. Here is my example, and if each of us has a different piece of that.
Yeah.
Well, and it's not fair to our employees, to be able to restrict them on what they can and can't do based upon the restricted funds we have.
And
So-
would this be a WASDA, I mean, I know their priority is probably this issue, but I mean, would that be the appropriate forum to communicate to legislatures? I mean, I'm just
I
wondering.
think so. That's the best way to amplify the voice
Yeah.
of school boards across
September
Washington State.
21st and 22nd is the Legislative Assembly, and that is where we I'm speaking as a WASDA person now, set our priorities on what we want to advocate for at WASDA. I'll give you here, this is
I'm glad you raised this. Are
an
you
agenda.
going?
I'm going.
Okay, so we can send one other person from the board.
Sure.
And we
But
should.
there's a sample agenda. I highly recommend, it's in Spokane.
Yeah.
So it's doable. And it's, this one is better than the last one, except for that, the general session
If
is
none
kind
of the rest of you can go, I will go, because I think this is a crucial time to be
It
involved.
really is.
But,
Yeah, totally agree.
And you usually have state representatives there, or senators, talking about what they foresee for the legislature this year and stuff, too. So it is a good starting point for advocacy, and this is how this is when they will prioritize during the assembly and stuff, what we do and don't do as a group, WASDA group. So there you go.
Thank you, Susan.
Yeah,
Thank you,
well,
Diane.
all we're getting. Thanks, Diane. So depressing.
Okay.
Commissioner Gill?
Yeah. So we've made it through our discussion items. There are some informational items to attend to there, but if there are no objections, we will now recess into an executive or closed session for the purpose of discussing negotiations and to evaluate complaints against public employees. Usually, we like to give no action will be taken. We like to give an estimate of how long this will last, so would you?
16 minutes.
16 minutes, and we will adjourn
I'm holding you to
then at 8 o'clock. All right, thank you.
That's what we'll shoot for.
Yep.